Dela writes, my MVVs, welcome. Elders expressed disappointment as they said that the great lion chose love over, crown. That they said the elders rage as, the great lion continued to defend, the jewel against ancient tradition. What is this ancient tradition? Is to carry that portal. Carry that pot if it is not trouble that these people are looking for. To carry that pot that is called Ikoko Idakeje, that happens to be the pot that the jewel is supposed to carry. Everything began when the elders gathered at the sacred grove to prepare for the ritual involving Ikoko Idakeje, the sacred pot believed to carry the spirit of silence and divine authority. It's a pot. Not everyone was. That pot is not everybody who is permitted to touch. They said. Nobody can even touch it. According to the ancient laws of Ife, only the spiritual chosen woman of the throne, the one whose purity and divine link is unquestionable, could bear it on her head during the rite. That woman, by all expectations, should have been, should come out, like they're supposed to call the woman out. That this thing, since Aaron Ikoko started, they are supposed to have done this ritual the entire since like last week or last 2 weeks. That the jewel knows very well that it was supposed to be the jewel who would suggest this, or the diviners who would suggest this to the jewel, and the jewel will, the great lion, and the great lion will agree. But the great lion has kept quiet because he doesn't want the wife to be involved in this, because he does not want the jewel to be part of this, carrying any pot. And so when they had this conversation, and the great lion rebuked them and said that it's never ever going to happen, those words fell like lightning in the courtyard. The chiefs and elders froze. Even the wine seemed to hold its breath. One of the oldest chiefs, his white beard shaking, looked at the great lion and said, Kabiesi, the tradition does not bend to feelings. The gods do not wait for love stories. The sacred pot must be carried, even if the jewel is no longer in the palace. As far as her name is called, they would have gone to pick her from anywhere to come and carry the pot. They didn't say any other person is the jewel, because the sin that was committed against the jewel. And the great lion say, how, logical is it that the person that they committed a crime against has to be the one who carried their own burden for them? No, that is not done. They said it's the laws of the land. And the great lion said, yes, the laws are made by people, and those laws can be adjusted. He said, no, that he is not saying the jewel will not come and do the needful. The jewel will come on the 29th. But for anybody to think that they can just go and push the jewel to go against her wish, that it will never ever happen, that he will never allow it. Because in the first place, they started this. They need to find another way, but this very one will not work. They said that the great lion is disrespecting the gods that made him king, that he is disrespecting the crown. The blood that crowned him is the same blood that chose, the jewel to be the one to carry the pot. They say word spread fast through the palace and into the street. Some people were stunned, others were sacredly proud. The women in the market called it Ife Tole Aworan, a love that defies even status. But within the royal courtyard, tension thickened. The elder sent emissaries to beg him to reconsider. They reminded him of his duty of the gods, of the line of kings before him, who never mix emotion with sacred right. But the great lion for the first time refused counsel. He said, if the gods gave me the jewel, then they gave her for a purpose. She carries a light none of you understand. If she cannot bear the Ikoko Adekaje, then let the pot rest until she returns, because she will not bear it. Now, remember when the great lion and the jewel first met, one of the major concerns was, will I say, traditional disparity, how they were going to cope and all of that. but they were able to cope. They never had issues because of each person's religion or tradition or all of that. It's because of all of these things. You know, elders wanting to make decisions for them and wanting to sit on top of their head and all of that. That is exactly what is happening now. The great lion said the jewel can never carry that pot. They said the whole thing was very, very annoying to the great lion and even his own personal supporters. They say one of the priestesses, who is also as a member of the Council of Elders, shouted that no king had ever halted a ritual for a woman. The palace guard stood uncertain. Even the other Oloris were restless, some in disbelief, some in jealousy. You know, a whole lot was happening just because the great lion said, no, it will never happen. Now, do you know how ridiculous that thing will look? Of everything for the jewel to do is to go and be carrying one pot. Just imagine that today you see the jewel on social media, tying a white cloth on her chest and carrying one pot on her head. What humiliation would be more than that? But one will not want to say that raw because, of course, it's people's tradition. And everybody's tradition needs to be respected. But this is something the jewel said from time immemorial that she will never be a part of. Why is Adetutu there? Adetutu represent the jewel in a traditional aspect. But this very one, the great lion say Adetutu will not do anything. That it is not, you know, the jewel's responsibility to carry their burden for them. That they cannot go and cause problems. Problems that hurt and humiliated the jewel so much, and then the jewel will come and be the one to bear the bonds. That it will never happen, not under his watch and all of that. They said it was a whole lot. When the time, as in they said, the elders kept talking. They talked and talked. Elders reconvened later that night. The tension was still at its peak. The royal courtyard was lit with torches, and the atmosphere felt like war. The great lion sat silently, his face unreadable. The head priest, stood holding his staff and declared that the gods must not be mocked. He said the ritual had to go on before the moon is completed, the moon cycle is completed, and so that, you know, they can hold the Aronikoko. You know, at this time, they had already gone to rest to think about it because that was the need for that their recess. But then again, the great lion came back and told them that nothing is going to happen. Even if they let them rest for 1 year, the jewel is not carrying any pot. And the jewel is not going to bear the bonds for people who have hurt her so much. I'm going to bring you more updates. Do not forget that these are all alleged rumors and verified information making the rounds on social media and should not be seen as fact.